I must admit my own fascination here with this poem, because this is a sequel to The Little Girl Lost. Little Girl Found is in Songs of Innocence, but it's a sequel to The Little Girl Lost. So you have Little Girl Lost, Little Girl Found. And in Songs of Experience, you again have the little girl lost. And this poem, as you see in the plate behind me, is so closely wedded to the little girl lost that the second part of Little Girl Lost is actually the upper part of this plate. That he put the first poem carrying over into the next poem, as though we were supposed to read the story going from one to the next. In that upper plate here, we see Laika apparently asleep with the trees around her. Those very same trees we've seen appearing over and over again. Only here, they're large, shadowy, ancient trees that not only threaten to keep her imprisoned, but almost seem to be like a lid closing over her, like a tomb closing over her. And in the background, we see these shadowy forms or shapes that almost seem to suggest a dense forest, perhaps a rock or stone behind her. And she is obviously just waking up to this sense that she's imprisoned. Well, below that is the plate of the little girl found. And it doesn't show immediately mother and father searching for her. Although in the poem, that's the major thrust of the poem. Laika is the main star, if you will, of Little Girl Lost. Mom and Dad are the stars of Little Girl Found. And in the plate, you'd think you'd see that immediately. But as you see here in the plate, you don't see that. What you see is instead, it looks like some sort of cat-like beast, perhaps a tiger or a lion underneath this tree, which is bending gracefully over. And the colors themselves suggest dawn, perhaps, the golden and the emerging light that comes from that tree and from that cat-like creature. Well, in this poem, mother and father are searching for Laika, and it's an exhausting experience. They can't find her. They don't know where she's gone. They're terrified. Perhaps she's gone forever. And so they're searching for her, and finally they are exhausted, can't go further, and so he carries her, and then they're confronted by this lion, which seems almost to threaten to weigh them down, to keep them pinned down. But then he transforms and becomes a shape they recognize, a human shape, who says, "Don't fear, I am married now to Laika. She and I are wedded, and she is part of my court." And that transformation makes him into a kingly personage, and they live forever with him after that. And at the very end of the poem, notice it says, they don't fear any longer the dark forces that prowl about. It's intriguing to me that the character of Laika, the young girl who is lost in the first poem, partly because she's lost in the desert, and partly because when a girl becomes a woman, she leaves behind that girlness, loses it. Well, that character of Laika, in some ways, becomes the mother in this poem. There's an identity between child and mother. And in this poem especially, the mother is almost as though she is now the lost character, though she's searching for that girlishness, that innocence. And her masculine partner, her husband, the father, carries her in times of darkness and doubt and sorrow where she can't go on any further. And it's only at that moment then that we see that the Lord, the bright golden Lord, is married to the young girl, and they're safe. So that man and woman, mother and father, are now safe, just as Laika and her Lord are safe as well. The poem ends with the girl being found. She now knows who she is. It's no longer little girl lost, you know, because that era's gone. She's now a woman, but she's now found in the sense that she's secure, safe, perhaps at peace with who she is. And the whole poem then takes on a dimension, not just of the subconscious, but a dimension of, I think, great prophecy about the nature of human life. That our coming as humans to understand who our Maker is also a coming to understand what our place is as adults. The transition from child to adult is a necessary transition. And it's only when we realize that our place is as mother and father, as adults, that we also find our Maker. And here is the second plate finishing the poem. Notice here there's several things of remarkable instance in the poem. The plate itself is of colors that are a little bit darker, but on the one side over here we have this very large tree twisted around, exactly like the tree in the little lamb. It's the same image. These two twisting powers twisting around one another. And on the far side we have almost a slip of a vine trailing down. It doesn't almost seem to be connected to the earth, barely touching the earth. So it's almost as though now man and woman in this poem have become one tree, no longer separate, no longer threatening either, because the tree here is not one that's threatening, but one that seems almost to give comfort, shelter, protection to all those creatures and characters down below that we see. And that's what's really remarkable in the poem, is that down below we have a lion and a lioness. We have a man lying down in sleep at peace. He no longer has to be the guard. We have the mother playing with the children, and the two little children, are cavorting about the lion and the lioness. This sense of power and strength and that golden regality of the lions beneath the shelter of this powerful intertwining tree. But again, sets of dual powers twisted, lion and lioness, dual powers, man and woman, dual powers, brother and sister, dual powers, all yet harmony and peace at the end of this poem, Little Girl Found.